Central Ohio Grassroots for Bernie when we could, and it was a good way to get progressive members of our community out. So Mimi and others asked me to do this workshop, and I brought with me, as luck would have it, I brought with me two special guests. Rosanna Cambron is from Los Angeles, California. She's a member of the Communist Party USA. Any other official title for you? I don't. And a member of Military Families Speak Out. Excellent. And we have the national chairperson of the Communist Party USA from Chicago, John Bechtel. So I'm really delighted to have them with me today. And I think what I want to do is I'll start with, we have about 45 minutes after all. I was mistaken. So I wanted to start out with a couple of things to say, just 4 points that I'd like to make. And then I'll turn the microphone over to John and Rosanna and see they can add to it. And then what I'd like to do is generate some discussion among the audience about what to do next. You know, this workshop is all about maintaining the momentum of the social movements that have really erupted across the country. I'm going to have to take off my glasses now. So I won't see you, but I will see my phone, so that's the important thing. So I just want to reiterate some of the points. I don't know if you guys have seen was anybody here at the People's Summit last weekend in Chicago? Yes, okay, John was there. The People's Summit was convened by the National Nurses Union, a very progressive union, and they had a 3-day festival of speakers about what to do next, how to build on the momentum. And in preparation for our meeting today, I've been watching those speeches. They're all on YouTube. It's kind of daunting when you open up a YouTube file and you see that it's an 11-hour file, but you can just have it on in the background, and there were some really great speeches there. So I want to recommend that you all look at that. Okay, so my 4 points is that kind of reiterate some of the things that were said at that conference last weekend. One point they made a lot was that the Bernie Sanders campaign has to be looked at in the big context of all of the movements from Occupy Wall Street, climate justice, Black Lives Matter, the labor protests like the one we had here in Ohio around Senate Bill 5, Students Against Sweatshops, opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the movements for immigrant rights like the Dreamers, and students protesting student debt. All of these different movements really coalesced in the movement to get Bernie Sanders the nomination for president. Now, they also pointed out the elections aren't movements. They're not social movements. They're just moments in time. And we can use them to go forward, but we have to make sure we understand that our work is not going to be finished after an election. Their second point they made was that we're all kind of in mourning because Bernie's not going to be our nominee. And he said this morning that he was going to vote for Hillary, and I think we should probably take leadership from him and from others like Frances Fox Piven, who said at the People's Summit that she was going to, hold her nose and vote for Hillary to defeat Trump. But she said that she really emphasized that the Trump voters we need to pay more attention to the Trump constituency. They're people who have long existed in the population. They have strains of xenophobia and racism, and now they've got the economic elites and the Republican elites ready to go along with it. She said we have to lure some of those voters to our side over the next 4 years. She said, quote, we've got to try to create the programs, the conditions that wean some of their supporters aside and get them to our side. we've got to use our movement power to show the working class and bourgeois Americans that there's another way to organize society, one that doesn't depend on stamping on outsiders and others but behind you. And we want to bring this back to Columbus, Ohio. We have some very strong movements here in Columbus. We have a strong, some strong socialist organizations. We have the Communist Party USA is here and growing in Columbus. We have some good elected officials in Ohio. Alicia Reese and Nina Turner come to mind in particular. Let me see what my next point is so I can just get to the last one. My last point focuses on the role of groups with broader, more inclusive agendas. The People's Summit really stressed how we should be supporting each other's movements and not be in our hermetic silos, just in our own issues, but instead recognize other people's movements. And I think that's why I think the role of the Communist Party is clear, that we bring together activists in a lot of different movements and give them a kind of a central clearinghouse. So I'd recommend that we read the People's World, which is the CPUSA paper, and that will help us, and also write for the People's World. If you have an article about a movement in Columbus and you'd like to move that into the national arena, the People's World is often soliciting articles from us here in Columbus. So right now I'd like to ask Rosanna or John, whoever wants to go first, to add a few words, and then we'll take some comments about, I'd like people to, I did have discussion questions, in fact, about what will it take to continue and to expand the political revolution and Bernie Sanders' near victory, and how, what are the areas of struggle that we most need to bolster in Central Ohio, and how can we go beyond politics and build movement here in Central Ohio. So thank you. I'll turn it over to one of you. John?
Okay. Well, thank you, Anita, for that kind of overall view of things, and I think you captured the moment really well. First of all, I'd just like to add one thing. I'm a born and raised Buckeye. Actually went to high school down in Yellow Springs, Ohio. I went to college at Antioch, so I'm very, very familiar, of course, with the history of this state and its role in politics nationally. And I'm really happy, of course, like all of you, I'm sure, that the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA title this week. And I say that, too, because, this state has been through a lot, as we know, and a lot of hard times, with the deindustrialization and the closing down of all kinds of factories and manufacturing facilities that have really had a huge impact on cities and towns and families, all across this state and region. And people really lived and died in a lot of ways, with the sports teams and anything that would offer any kind of hope. And so I think the eruption of joy around the victory of the Cavaliers was something to behold. I just want to say a couple things on the People's Summit. One of the most important things, I think, is that, we, all of us, I think, recognize that the victory by Donald Trump and the Republicans, extreme right, Tea Party, and so on, would represent a real danger to our democracy and democratic rights. I can only imagine, if Donald Trump was the president and was appointing Supreme Court justices, and also, the administration, Attorney General, and so on and so forth. I have these nightmares about Chris Christie, as the Attorney General of the United States. So we all, I think, recognize that this is a huge danger and that, it's really necessary to build the broadest unity of forces to defeat Trump and the Republicans, and in particularly in this state. This is, as we all know, this is a swing state and very vital for any kind of victory. And I think that everybody, even at this People's Summit, recognizes that without that kind of victory, this political revolution that Bernie Sanders has talked about throughout the campaign is really an impossibility. It'll be dead in the water, and without changing, the composition of Congress, without changing the state houses all across this country, from right-wing control to, majorities of elected officials that at least believe in a people's program, or at least labor rights, civil rights, people's rights, and so on. So it's really vital, I think, this building of this movement, to deliver a big vote, in November to defeat the extreme right. The other thing that I thought was very interesting about this People's Summit was, there was no moping. It was actually a celebration in a lot of ways of what was accomplished in this campaign. It was really an extraordinary campaign, as we know, and it's really changed the politics of our country in so many fundamental ways. These movements, Bernie didn't start the movement. As we know, it's been going on for a number of years, and the Fight for 15, the Dreamers, the climate justice fight, the fight around reproductive rights, and so on have been going on for a number of years. Black Lives Matter movement been going on for a number of years, but he did give voice, in the electoral arena to this, and in that sense, his campaign was a movement, and just as in 2008, 2012, Barack Obama's campaign was a movement that involved tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of volunteers and so on across this country. So we want to see that continue, all of us, I'm sure, and including building independent structures, grassroots organizations, at wherever we can, that will embody this campaign and what it stands for as we go forward, and that will elect candidates to office at every level that will fight, for that program. And so one of the things that was very strong at that People's Summit was the call for thousands of people to run for public office. People like you and I, here today, have to run. We can't leave it up to somebody else. We have to run. We have, at every level, whether it be for city council or for state legislature or for school board or block club captain, whatever it is, we need to run for those offices, and we need to win, and we need to build the necessary movements and coalitions at the local level that'll do it. So that's really I think, the two things we have going, in front of us: defeat the extreme right, defeat the Trump and the Republicans in November, and build these independent structures, continue the fight to build the movements, but also to elect grassroots public officials that represent the people at every level. And in the process, we're going to change this country. So people really, I think, are holding out all kinds of hope for what will happen, and Bernie certainly gave a lot of hope, and I think we can bring that into a reality.
Okay, so, okay, you don't want to, okay. Well, what I'd like to do now is open it up to you guys and ask the questions again. I'll tell you my discussion questions. One was, what will it take to continue and to expand the political revolution that Bernie Sanders' near victory has exposed for us? And what are some areas of struggle that we need to bolster in Central Ohio? And how can we go beyond electoral politics and build that movement power that Francis Fox Piven said was so crucial in meeting our goals and making sure that we're ready for 2020 elections? Also, I might want to answer my own question first, and just say that I think we have to talk about the Strickland-Portman campaign. And that's going to be, I think, my favorite go-to campaign of the fall, because I would just love to see Rob Portman lose that election, and he has so much money. I was looking at the National Rifle Association and what they have spent, and they've spent more than half of their budget in Ohio. $392,000 went to Portman, and $216,000 was spent against Strickland. So they have another $35,000 was spent against Hillary Clinton. But the Hillary Clinton and Ted Strickland are the only people that the National Rifle Association is spending money against at this point. So I think that's really going to be our challenge for Ohio for the fall election. And this morning's Brexit results makes me think that maybe we do have to work a little harder to make sure Trump is not successful, because crazy things can happen. So I would like to pass the mic to some of you. Mimi, you want to start? And you have your hand up too. I'll be the chair.
I'm not sure I have an answer, but I do have a pretty tightly formulated question. In terms of what do we have to do to keep the movement going, you mentioned at one point, or perhaps you did, something about trying to talk to Trump supporters and bring, I got to say that, lure them away. Yeah, maybe if I ever have any free time. I'm a lot more concerned about hanging on to the new voters who registered for the first time, who thought of voting at all for the first time this year, who learned to go door to door, learned to circulate petitions and make cold calls. They learned all of this, and then their candidate didn't win. And one of the problems is that, well, let me back up a second and say that the reason I'm focused on these people is because the Democratic Party and anybody with a brain has actually been looking at this cohort for years. In 2010, the Pew Center for Pew Research people, it's the Center for Public Policy and the Press, I think is the name of it. They dubbed this group the Party of Non-Voters. They're mostly young, mostly deeply in debt. They're more in favor of federal government than most people. But they didn't vote, and they wouldn't vote, and they wouldn't vote, and they wouldn't vote. And the Democrats have been trying to get this group and haven't been able to get them until this year. And what brought those people, we need to find a way to keep their attention, but what got them involved and what I believe is needed to keep their attention is a full progressive agenda like Bernie articulated, because the reason his campaign was so different is because apart from the Communist Party and a handful of other organizations that have full agendas, the American left has been dominated for 40 years by essentially identity politics, not in the pejorative sense, but there are a number of reasons for this, but they're single-issue groups, some of which just don't have the faintest idea why they should form coalitions, never mind seeing it as a priority. To me, that is the primary goal of the progressive movement in the United States, is to build a national-level progressive coalition with a full agenda. And that the reasons why that hasn't happened are varied, and they include all sorts of things, including the federal tax code, believe it or not, because a lot of these groups are 501c3 organizations, and there are very real constraints on what they can do, but they could form political coalitions. And not enough of the existing radical revolutionary reform groups do that. They go out and they raise their own money, and they keep their own business, and that's not good enough anymore. So how to talk to those young people who have just, they got all revved up, and now they believe that the election has been stolen from them. This is really important. I don't know how we're going to get past that, but the numbers of Sanders supporters who say they will not vote for Hillary Clinton has been going up in the last 2 weeks, and it's now above 50%. And this matters. I think a lot of them will come back, but the big news is that a lot of them won't come back. I personally am not all that terrified about the prospect of a Trump presidency, because although the media has been acting like these are two equal-sized parties and giving them this phony objectivity of equal time, they're not. There are, in fact, many more Democrats than there are Republicans. But it sure would be nice to obliterate him in the popular vote in November. But I still think the real target we need to be after is the young folks who just got up and got active this year, and we need to keep those people active, and I think it's going to take prioritizing coalition building to do that.
Thank you, Mimi. Did you have your hand up too? Yeah.
I'll add on to what you said. It's great that the young people were involved. I've been involved in politics, and I've actually held a public office myself, and 1 year or one term on the Democratic Central Committee. But what worries me now is I like what Bernie's done. I like the movement. I like the activism. But it has to start small. It has to be built from the city level, the local level, the Bexley levels, and state level for it to truly succeed. And the Bernie or Bust crowd is not just younger people. And I don't know if it's just that they're angry or if it's, they just feel disenfranchised by the Clinton presidency. But how do we get these people to understand that a Trump presidency will throw us backwards possibly 50 years with the Supreme Court, and to kind of you're biting your nose and biting your face by going ahead and not kind of holding your nose and voting for Hillary, because at least she's going to be status quo. I don't think it's going to be, it won't be. Trump is dangerous, and we've all seen that. He's in it for himself. This morning he was promoting his golf course after the Brexit vote, saying that this is good for me because the pound is down. I mean, the man is not, we need to stop him at all costs. So that's all. So anyone have any ideas on how to bring these people along would be great.
Yes.
I commented from a little different take. I think it's wrong to talk about 2020. It seems like, that's the next hurdle. But in reality, what we're trying to build, and Bernie talks about this is a long struggle. This is not going to happen tomorrow. And then we have to realize that to win, we have to build from the bottom up, and it's going to take a while. We're not going to have somebody, I think, ascending to the presidency in 2020. And I think one of the things that the Bernie people miss is the Democratic Party is the closest party, political party at this point, to what they believe in. And the idea is we should not cede it to Hillary Clinton and the corporate interests that back Hillary Clinton. That our goal should be to take the party over. There are enough of us out there to do that. The Bernie campaign has shown that. Many of the women who support Hillary are right along with us, supporting us in taking the party from being complacent and being a party that allows the foreign policy of this country to run along like there's no change. There was no change between George Bush and Barack Obama on foreign policy. We didn't get out of Afghanistan. We're still in Iraq. We're still holding prisoners. We're fighting the wrong war. And I just think that the people who are not voting need to understand there needs to be an inside-out strategy. Inside the party and a force outside the party that forces it to do what we want it to.
Okay, I just want to add something because I mentioned the 2020, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not going to happen overnight. We have to build it from the bottom up, and that's why it's especially irritating to hear some people on the Bernie or bust side. There's saying that Bernie should run as an independent. There was a whole they're really misunderstanding what the reality is out there. There are a lot of people I know and have worked with in this city who are really committed to Hillary and looking forward to voting for her. And as far as Hillary's going off of what you said, I think Hillary is movable in ways that Donald Trump is not movable. And I think, I don't know if I have my history right, but it seems to me, I remember reading that after FDR was elected, there was a big upsurge in, you guys who know your labor history better than me, there was a delegates march on Washington, and demands were made of FDR that moved him to the left between November and January when he took over. I mean, there was an upsurge, and I think maybe we should be building for that. If we are looking at a Hillary Clinton victory in November, how are we going to move the agenda of Bernie Sanders forward from there? I think that's something that we should think about. Oh, yes. You're next.
I'm hearing what you're saying on Bernie Sanders and all that right now. And I understand with some Bernie supporters, they don't want to pick Hillary because they see Hillary as worse than Trump. But the truth is on this front is, I'm going to admit, I was somebody that did support Bernie to the point where I did push the button for Bernie in Ohio. But I'm also somebody who also, like Bernie, look at this pragmatically. We need a Democrat, and I understand there is Greens, there are Libertarians as well, but I'm also somebody who's realistic right now, and that we can push Hillary, and as you just pointed out, Hillary is pushable. It just even look at what the Bernie party has done from the beginning, from literally when this began. Hillary was preaching, I'm about experience. She's starting to look at what these Bernie supporters are doing. Your work is actually being noticed. I mean, it's not like this movement. Like, I know Bernie ain't the nominee, but you forced Hillary to actually say, okay, let's work on school funding. Let's work on these issues. At TTP, even those issues. So for me, as a Democrat, as somebody, I was happy with both Bernie and I was happy with Hillary as well, because I know with these two, they're the two strongest candidates out there. And with Bernie has pushed a whole bunch of people in, and that's right. I've heard about the Bernie or bust situation. I just think with young people, make them realize that you can't go all halfway in. You got to go all the way in. And if you have somebody that you can push, you can make the change. So that's my thoughts on it.
Okay. Who's next? Or, well, I'll pose another question. I want to get back to what Mimi said about all these little single-issue organizations that we have. I know, for instance, the Columbus Bill of Rights doing the anti-fracking efforts. The Yes We Can, by the way, all of you who are in Columbus should vote yes for that issue on to ward politics on our August 2nd primary day. But all these little issues, what's the best way to get communication and mutual support going among all these different disparate single issue organizations that we have going? Any ideas? Or any other comments answering my discussion questions? Mimi?
What do you do about it is the question. And locally, I mean, I'd be happy if all of these groups somehow, there used to be, people talk about the community union that was in existence when ComFest started. It wasn't the strongest, most well-built organization. It didn't last very long. But I know that there are people who wish there was something like that. In its absence, I think that here and elsewhere we do need to start forming coalitions around anything that we can. But I continue to wonder how the hell we're going to get to the point nationally where somebody can put out a call and expect people to come to a conference now, because one of the things that happened when all the new young Bernie voters are being now sort of drifting away from the campaign is they came, they got active, and they left without getting a sense of the political terrain in this country. They still don't know who all these other single-issue groups are. They don't know who the handful of multi-issue groups I mentioned, they don't know who they are. They don't, in many cases, even understand left and right, because there's been so many libertarians in the mix that they think that's outmoded. So they don't know how to begin to start looking. There are things like the continuations thing, Reddit, the social media site, did an amazing amount of Bernie work, and they're trying to keep themselves together through creating new communities called Political Revolution and like that. And that's interesting, but most of the people I hear talking are talking about the two conventions, the Republican and the Democratic, and they just want to go out there and raise hell because they're so angry, and that's not enough, and it's not going to build anything. So how to get them back, I don't know, except I know it's important.
Well, on that note, I would say thank you to ComFest, because I think ComFest is one thing that brings those people together. And I was walking around ComFest this morning and seeing how many political tables there are. A number of single issue people are here, but others too. And it's good and those people should be trying as hard as they can to recruit those Bernie supporters, as we are too. I mean, we're inviting them to join the Communist Party after all too, which is an exciting place to be, and it's growing. So, and that's a good kind of umbrella organization for a lot of different activists. It's a party of activists, basically. So I think we're supposed to be. Are we winding down? There's a what? Oh, another musical group comes on in 10 minutes. So I think do you have any closing thoughts, John or Rosanna?
Well, I think that the points that were being made about the possibility to, if Hillary and the Democrats are elected, as majority particularly if we are able to break the Republican majority in the Senate and elect Hillary as president, that, the political terrain in the country will have been altered. And that's a really important thing. And the issues that will have helped to elect Hillary as president will have a new place, in the country. And I think it is really important that we keep underscoring the fact that Hillary can be changed. She can be moved, and she has been moved, as you pointed out. And I just saw just the other day, for example, even on the issue of Social Security, that, whereas a couple years ago she was part of this crowd that was calling for reducing so-called entitlements and retrenching on Social Security, now she's talking about expanding Social Security, and as President Obama is as well. So this is a really important shift that's taken place, and this is something that Sanders has been advocating. So I think it's vital that we help these young people to understand the dynamics of politics, that people can change, and it's a good thing. some people say, oh, she's just, she's a chameleon and all this kind of stuff. It's a good thing that she's changing and she's moving on these issues, just as Roosevelt moved and just as Lincoln moved and so on. This is politics. I think the other thing that will give these young people hope is that these movements are not going away. And all the things that they care about, the Black Lives Matter, the Dreamers, the climate justice, the fight for 15, and all those things, these things are not going away. We're going to continue to build these movements. They're going to continue to impact the politics of this country. And I think most of these young people are going to be involved in these things one way or another. I guess I can speak for myself, but I'm sure I can speak for others. The last, decade before the election of Obama, we suffered a lot of defeats. And every time you turn around, the candidates that we were supporting were getting defeated and one after another. Those Bush years were really dark years in this country. And when we finally elected Barack Obama as president, that was a tremendous victory. And you saw the way that people celebrated from one end of the country to the other. And it felt good because for once, we elected somebody who, we were supporting and who won. Victories and defeats are part of part of politics, and you're not going to get everything you want in one election, unfortunately. And so I think that that's also another lesson of politics, and that you just got to keep on going. You got to keep fighting. You can't give up. And so I think, to me, this has been such a great experience. And by the way, one of the things about the Obama election was that there were so many young people that were active in that campaign. And you know what? A lot of them went on to run for office. And for example, in Chicago, where I live now, we have a lot of progressive independent candidates who've been running for aldermen and on the lower level. And a lot of them came out of the Obama campaign. Well, I bet that a lot of the young people and others who have been active in this campaign around Bernie Sanders, they're going to run for office too. So the seeds have been sown in this country for a lot of progressive candidates, perhaps thousands of them that will run in the elections coming up. And that's a good thing, and that'll be exciting, and the movement will continue to grow and build.
Okay, so I think we're going to leave it at that, and thank you all for coming, and thank you especially to ComFest for inviting us to do this. And I wish Aaron could have been with us today. His mother passed away, and he has the funeral this morning, so it was really a sudden thing. But Aaron is a young person who's going to stick with it, I think. He's a Capital University student, and I think he exemplifies the kind of young people that Mimi was talking about. So thank you so much. Bye-bye. Stop by our tent. I don't know who gets this.
Scott, you okay?
Hello, Bob Silver.
We need a white balance.
A what?